And welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show. My man Anthony Schlegel here, riding shotgun again. We're in the thralls of camp season. Ohio State right there, college football right there, NFL preseason action going on right now. The Olympics are wrapping up. Man, it has been a frothy week, if you will. Some big news coming out of Ohio State. They call it Ohio Stadium. It's nicknamed the Shoe. Could there be a name change? Well, we'll dive into that. We've also got some more updates on the Michigan scandal, NCAA putting out their NOA, the notice of allegation, Schlegs, so Michigan will have a chance to respond and rebuttal to that should they choose to do so. We always have our questions from our listeners as well. But you've been out at camp a little bit. You've been running around the Armory. You've had a lot of good stuff going on. Second kind of full week of camp starting up here. Kind of your thoughts of where we are right now, position battles, other things going on.
Yeah, one thing is in camp, we talked about last week, Bob, when you have a veteran defense like this, it makes it difficult on the offense for evaluation. But guess what? Better to make it really, really difficult at the beginning than to be, watered down, because that's how it's going to happen. That's how a game is, right? They're going to come out with different packages on defense. When you see them, who are the ones that are able to adjust? Who are the ones that are able to execute when there's chaos? And that's what you want to see. And we're starting to see that. There's been a lot of talk about Will Howard just in social media, what he's done at practice, ripped off like an 80-yarder. Again, he gives you options. But besides like even the quarterback battle, one, it was really good. And the right guard battle, it was just really good just to kind of watch, Trevion and Q and being able to take different reps. And you saw that James Peoples got his black stripe just taken off recently. He's
your Peoples, right?
He's my Peoples, man, also from Texas. And you saw that. You have Sam Williams-Dixon, that third running back, potentially.
Wasn't the Sam Williams-Dixon?
Exactly. I said that a lot when I got to train him. Great kid. Has really changed his body, doing well. He's a Columbus guy. But so I like
Never
that.
Smiles
right?
either. I mean,
he smiles for me sometimes. You got to know how to get in,
hey,
get
listen,
in.
I saw him the other day in there, and he's from like Eastern Ohio, and so we do some oil and gas stuff out there. I'm out there a lot, and then he transferred and he ended up going to Pickerington, North, I want to say, and that's where he finished up before he came in. But I'm like, man, I mean, you could be out there in Morrow County, working on a drilling rig right now. I mean, instead we're getting to lift weights and play football for the Buckeyes. And he just kind of looked at me, and I'm like, okay, man, like just
he doesn't get that.
I told Trey, you guys have the most serious room of anybody. Like Trey, like Quinshawn really doesn't smile. Peeps doesn't really smile. Sam Williams-Dixon doesn't really smile. Like I told Trey, I'm like, until you got saved by Jesus about a year and a half ago, you never smiled. So like, what are we doing, man? Like we got to get some juice, some enthusiasm into that room.
They got a very serious coach. And I would say this
about, man, big guns.
I would say this about that room in particular. They handle their business when they're in the weight room. I mean, it's all business. It's all ball. But we really don't get to see them when they're in the locker room or within the team meeting room, because I guarantee you there is a little bit of that. But they are really just about their business, and that's, again, it goes back to like when I'm just watching camp, and then you have two number one running backs, potentially high draft pick guys that are very different, splitting reps. How does that go? And they don't focus on the reps that they're getting. They're focusing on executing when they get them. That's just a different mindset that I really love to see from college athletes. And then you kind of go like, who else is maybe surprising you a little bit, Bob? And I want to hear your take on this, but somebody I think that's going to have a really, really big year is K-Mac. Okay, K-Mac, D lineman. I think that he is quick off the ball. He's a big human being, man.
Give us our full name of K-Mac so that people.
I just call him K-Mac. I don't even know what K-Mac.
I don't even know.
What? Tell me what it is, Bob.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to pull it up. I'm trying to.
Anyways, I'm just gonna call him K-Mac because you look it up. But I'm gonna tell you some things about K-Mac. So K-Mac, and this is where like Kenny Parker had all the groups, okay? But K-Mac, one, big human being, very athletic, very twitchy, exceptionally strong. And we talked about this year in particular when
are you talking about K-Jack, Kenyatta Jackson?
No. That's KJ. That's KJ.
Okay. All right.
That's KJ. 98. All right. So K-Mac, really strong individual, but like as a nose guard, he is going to be he's going to be so disruptive.
Oh,
I'm
Caden
telling you right now.
McDonald. Okay.
I know.
Yeah.
But I just call him K-Mac. Listen, I just when you're a coach and how I was at Ohio State, I just use like I call him KJ or JT or like I'm just calling names. I just see who's on my sheet. I don't really know, but I didn't really have him. I got to watch him from afar and how he handled his business. Super strong, super twitchy, and here's my thing with him. I was like, K-Mac, here's the deal. NIL, you and me, we'll think about it. We're going to take this to McDonald's and we're going to get a K-Mac special. It's kind of your flair on a Big Mac, but we'll call it a K-Mac and we'll serve it around Ohio. Let's get you some NIL dollars that way. And we would joke about that. But I would just happen to watch him in practice and he just caught my eye about how violent he is with his hands. And again, train violent to play violent. And I'm just like, dude, this guy's going to have a year. And I'm excited for that because you're going to have depth on the offense and defensive line. And he's just one of those pieces in that depth for the defensive line.
It's funny. He's a Georgia guy, came up here,
Oh, yeah.
but his family's originally from Columbus. When he was getting recruited through here, his grandpa came up and said, "What do you know about Rob Carpenter down at Lancaster, Ohio?" And I'm like, "I have no idea who this guy is." Like, "Oh yeah, it's your boy K-Mac's grandfather. He played against my dad when he was at Eastmoor.
Awesome.
I want to say I'm almost positive at Eastmoor. So, like Georgia guy, but Ohio roots. He's good. Like not the tallest guy in the world, but very explosive. And like you said, really twitchy. And he's going to have to be a piece and needs to be one of those rotational guys inside behind Ty and Tyleek in there.
Yep.
Because both those dudes are going to be beasts with everything. Kenyatta Jackson, also a guy that I think you need to see get some stuff going. We talked about Will Howard. Threw some good deep balls. Everybody was kind of down on him. I've been watching him pretty closely. And I think his deep ball accuracy is improving. He's looking better with that. Obviously, you watched his body transformation, Schlegs, as you were there, like when he came in.
Yeah.
Leader, runs well, does all the things right. And I think you're starting to see him kind of embrace that role as he's becoming a little more comfortable with everything. Defense had kind of been kicking the offense. I wouldn't say kicking the offense's butt, but defenses are usually always ahead early in training camp and like in spring ball. Just takes longer to obviously get on the same page. But feel like the offense has really started to catch up. They had a big scrimmage on Saturday, and towards the end of this week, you feel like the offense was starting to click. And the receivers, when they get good balls, they're really tough to stop. And they did a great job. Quarterbacks were dropping it in there. And you've started to see this training camp, this competition, guys going back and forth and watching the leaders come out on defense when they didn't necessarily have a day, I think, like they had been having, where it'd been a lot of domination. All of a sudden, receivers are catching all those contested balls and moving the football on them. And so that's where you're getting to see some of his leadership. IGB, getting to see Lathan Ransom, Cody Simon, JT, Jack, like those dudes really starting to lean in on, hey, we've got to be better. And we've been great, but you're only as good as your last day. You're only as good as your last play. So, yeah, we've got a good offense. That's great. They can go be good against other people. And just coming back to that, like iron sharpening iron. And there have been a ton of scouts out there at practice, like NFL scouts, looking at all these guys. And I love talking to them and picking their brain about everything that has been going on. So we're going to put a pin in that. We're going to dive back into it because there's a couple guys there that I really want to focus on that I think could be getting some play on the defensive side of the ball that I think have made some progress that have looked really, really good. So we'll get into that. And the shoe. Will it always be called the shoe? Yeah, we're always going to call it that. But in an era of NIL and fundraising, we've seen it happen. Could the naming rights to Ohio Stadium be up for bid? Well, we'll take a look at that here next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show. And listen, if you're watching on Bally's, thank you for watching on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, leave comments. We love it. We're going to keep giving you great Buckeye content here coming on the daily here very soon. So I want to tell you about this. It's headlines today. I want to tell you they're brought to you by our friends at Affinity Whole Health. I've been a patient at Affinity for the last 7 years. They offer personalized treatment plans to help you feel better, whether you're struggling with weight loss, low energy, muscle loss, poor sleep. They can help you with all of that. Affinity Whole Health provides expert guidance and support to help you safely reach those health goals. And they've got all of Ohio covered. They're in Cleveland, they're Columbus, they're expanding, they're in Indy, they're in Chicago. They want to be everywhere that you are. So don't wait any longer. Go set up a free consultation by going to affinityWholeHealth.com. That's affinityWholeHealth.com. Naming rights, Ohio State, Ross Bjork, talk potentially about those being up for sale, Schlegs, in the future. And I don't know how that would potentially look, whether it's such and such field at Ohio Stadium. It's always going to be nicknamed the Shoe. I know that there's people that are probably crazy upset about this. Maybe you should be. I just look at it now where they're trying to raise money for everything. You're trying to raise money for players, for facilities, all these different venues. And I get it. I understand it. And I love the iconic name. It'll always be the Shoe, but it wouldn't surprise me if they do that. And it's probably, frankly, like something they're going to have to do in the future.
Yeah, when you're at Ohio State and you have 36 other sports and you have, 2 revenue generating sports, which is men's basketball and men's football, that really carry the load for everybody else. Like, you're going to have to think outside the box a little bit. And this is just one of those. And again, I think that it is always Ohio Stadium. I was reading the comments about this when this was brought up.
Don't read the comments too much. You'll get
no, I don't.
Place.
It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. But part of it was, hey, the people of Ohio chipped in to build this back in 1917, and they should have the ability to keep it that way. And again, it's always, I think it should always be Ohio Stadium, right? Presented by whoever.
Yeah,
that's fine, right? It's okay to have Ohio Stadium presented by, Big Play or Canes or Bobby Carpenter Heating and Cooling, right? Or whatever you want, Garage Beer, get them on there, right? I know that they could probably afford it. So, regardless of what it is, to me, in my mind, it will always be, Ohio Stadium, the Shoe on the banks of the Olentangy, right? When we were playing like Brett Musburger, that's what he said every single time. That's what it resonates with me. It's always going to be Ohio Stadium. Sure, affiliated with a brand, that's fine, right? Get that money that you need. It's going to be a bidding war because it's the biggest brand in college football. But that money is going to go a long way for a lot of different things. So I have no problem with it. It will always be what it is to us. So, charge it to winning.
Well, and they're going to have to continue to upgrade and renovate and do things to it. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
it's a 100-year-old stadium, and they've done a great job. Bo Bishop would always say it's called modernizing tradition, where you keep the feel of it the same, but you have to add those nuances, those new touches and everything. And they've continued to add suites and done stuff. They didn't connect it, but they made it about as close as possible. So you have a better reveal coming out of the tunnel. There's just a lot of small things they're doing. So I understand that if one day here in the future, you're going to have to throw it on there, a name on there. Now, Ross, we did joke. I threw that out, Carpenter Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. I don't know if we're quite to that level where we'd be able to afford that yet. Got to probably have to rustle up some more business first, Schlegs, to be able to get that done. But there are some iconic Columbus companies and Ohio companies that would probably fit pretty well with it and want to be a part of it. And I know I was talking to someone at Safe Light who's big, obviously, in Columbus, and they've thrown it out there. Like, we would never want to change it. It just want to have the branding associated with it because, like you said, it's the most powerful brand in all of college athletics, and it's probably the most powerful brand in Ohio. And when you think about Ohio State football, 11 million people in the state, how the passion, how much they care, and the fact that it's not just Ohio. I mean, it's a national brand. There's a reason why when Ohio State plays, Schlegs, that it is viewed by everybody, and the numbers are crazy across the country. So they're probably going to have to do this at some point, and I get it. It'll feel a little different. People will get used to it. Probably not going to be the end of the world, though. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, Safe Life Repair, Safe Life Replace. Boom, easy little jingle. But my biggest thing is this: it's 2024. We're going to an expanded conference. I mean, we've seen traditions, we've seen things go by the wayside. We had a 14 playoff. Like, poof, David Copperfield, very short-lived. We're already at 12. There was the BCS era. There were rivalry games. Bedlam no longer happens because of conference realignment. Like, there's all these different things that are kind of going to following the dollars. But, right, this is something that is very, again, when I was talking to guys, right, boom, stacking days, counting sideways. You know what I'm saying? And we're stacking dollars, right? But then we got to divvy it out to all the different sports, and we want to get recruits here, et cetera, because you got to have the Jimmy the Joes to run the X's and O's. But I think you can do it the right way. That's why I have no problem with it.
Let me ask you this. Would you rather see Ohio Stadium presented by whoever or some sort of patch or branding on the jersey?
I'd rather have the stadium over a patch just because let's face our patches, right? So there's only so many things. You have the logo of Nike because we're a Nike school. You have the Big Ten patch, right? When you go to the playoff, right, or a bowl game, you have another patch. Like, where are the other patches going to go? Patches O'Houlihan. I don't know.
Patches
right?
O'Houlihan.
So like, where are you going to put these? And are they small? Like, whatever. I would rather see that. I would rather than bring the gray sleeves back. I would say that's first.
Yes.
Bring back that tradition. But again, Ohio Stadium presented by a Safe Light, boom, that makes sense to me. So I would rather have that over a patch on the uniform. Our patch is going to be a thing moving forward. Yes, because there's also the AYOs of the world that don't have our network and our brand that are going to have to think outside the box. And they're like, they're getting that many dollars for it. Well, why don't we just do it too? Because we have a bigger brand, right? And what is that? And again, here's the other thing too. When you think about this in totality, it all goes back to the players that are representing and wearing the brand that people associate it with. So that only increases the value of those people moving forward as well in the NIL dollars. So it's part of the puzzle, right, of bringing in and acquiring the talent that you need to stay successful. And we'll talk more about that too later in the show, but I have no problem with the naming rights of the stadium done tastefully.
Well, so the question is it really necessary that I drink my own urine? No, but it's sterile and I like the taste. Patches O'Houlihan.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what we're all about. Is it really necessary that you rename the stadium? Probably not, but you need the dollars. I would rather, like you said, don't mess with the jersey. I'll trade. I'll be on board. I'll sign off. Hey, naming rights to the stadium, all good. If you can get the gray sleeves back. I feel like that is an even trade as far as tradition goes. Get the gray sleeves back on the jersey. You feel good about it. All's right in the world. And then all of a sudden, you throw a naming rights on the stadium. Okay. We're going to move on from that because there was an article that came out talking about Ohio State potentially as an underachiever. What does that mean? We'll get into it next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, welcome back into the show. Underachievers, the Buckeyes. Well, Bill Connelly and Adam Rittenberg, ESPN, put together a list of the biggest underachievers in college football. They put together this list, and Ohio State fell in with Florida State in the could have done more category. And I think that's really Schlegel since the CFP, the playoff, going back to 14. They won the first one, made it to a couple more, made it to a national championship, but didn't hang any more banners. And mentions only one title in the last 20 years. Two if you go back, 25. Before that, though, you're going back to 68, 70. It'd been a long time. Now, remember with Tress, they won it in 02, played again in 6 and 7, didn't win those, knocking on the door a couple other times. And back then, it was really hard in the BCS because only 2 teams were getting in. Right. CFP, 4 were getting in, so it was a little bit easier to get in there. But some other notables on list: Penn State, Florida, USC, Miami, and Texas A&M all are in the no-show category, which was pretty crazy. When you look at the fact that if you would have told me when the CFP started that Florida, USC, Miami would have never gotten in, Penn State probably a little bit surprising, A&M not as much. But your thoughts about how Ohio State is viewed maybe nationally as hoisting banners, but not maybe as frequently as they should given the talent.
Well, I think that you go back and you look at the 12 year that we had the bowl ban that
could have been one.
Could have been one. You look at 15, didn't even go to the CFP. Should have. That was one of the best years you had. What was it? That
was one of the best teams in Ohio State history in 15.
100% as far as talent, right? And you didn't do that. The COVID year, right? The year before that, you go and you lose to Clemson. I remember that was the one where you had the should have been the fumble recovery, and then you go and you play in
targeting on Sean Wade.
Right, exactly. Terrible, right? So that was another year. And then you had the one where you go and you lost to Michigan, and then you go and you play Georgia and you miss on a field goal. That totally changed the dynamic of how people view even Ryan Day at this point. But again, it's also the game. It's a game of inches. It's a game of making plays. It's a game of one-on-ones. Like we talk about those things, you got to go do it. So underachieving, like to me, in this like condensed era, let's just say 10 to 14 years, it's really Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, and Georgia have been the most consistent ones. And then you go look at all the other ones and what we associate with big brands. Like guys, since Pete Carroll, USC has only been ranked in the top 25 7 times. Same thing with Texas. It's crazy. And then they also had Florida State as an underachiever. They haven't done anything. They've been unranked 2017 to 2021, unranked. Yeah. So it's like how they're putting this list together and what they're viewing as Ohio State. Yeah, have we not been able to hang up the banners 100%? But like as far as like consistency there, we expect more. I would say of those teams, the expectations are significantly higher for the four that I mentioned. And now, honestly, I would say Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. The expectation is national championship every single year. That's what the fan bases want.
And so Ohio State's last two coaches both won national championships. There's only one team, to my knowledge, that had 3 consecutive coaches win national championships, and that was LSU with Nick Saban, Les Miles, and then Ed Orgeron. Yeah. Now, they're in their 4th coach right now. We'll see if Brian Kelly can take it to 4. And Ohio State is in their 3rd with a chance to make it 3 in a row with Ryan Day, which I believe he will get done. But LSU's kind of unique in that where they've had spikes where they've been good. I was talking to Jacob Hester about it, who went there. He goes, yeah, we've had some years where we've underachieved and not been very good as well. But when they've gotten there, they've cashed in. I think that's the thing with Ohio State is there's been times where they've gotten there, they just haven't cashed in. And some of that, like you said, it's luck. It's the bounce of a football. It's a bad call here. It's a no call there. It's, COVID. It's 2012 where you're going to beat Notre Dame in the national championship game. You would have gotten in over Alabama, but you couldn't play because of the nonsense of what happened before, and you didn't take the penalties the way you should have. So I don't think Ohio State's an underachiever. They've gotten there. They've been in the conversation. I would say they haven't been a great finisher in the big moments. And maybe that's it. Underachieving to me that's Penn State. That's Florida. Like not even getting there. USC. Like it's crazy to think about
Texas.
That. Yeah. Texas. I mean, Texas and people, they're kind of skating a little bit because they just got back and now they're looking good again. From 2005, till now, they won it then. Colt McCoy had a really nice stretch where they were close. But it's not like they've been out there, beating the door, and they spun through coaches trying to get it right as well.
Well, yeah, Mac Brown, then you had Charlie, then you had Tom, then you have Sarkisian, right? So it's like in the last 14 years at Texas, they've had 6 top 25s. They haven't won a national championship since 2005. Yeah. So again, it goes back. I look at this more as like consistency, right? But to your point, they just haven't finished, and that's what it's all about, man. It's all about when you're one-on-ones and finishing when the moment's right. And there's a lot that goes into that. It's having the alphas on the field at the end. It's why you and I are constantly talking about the depth as they go through this season and having all your guys on the field in the matchup games. Like that's what you have to have. You got to win them, and then you got to be ready to go make that run in the playoffs. So again, consistency. I think Ohio State is there, but you got to be a finisher.
Got to be able to finish, and they're close. Like I said, they've been close to being able to do it, just haven't done it. Some others in the list, as they put together biggest underachievers, Nebraska and Arkansas. I think Nebraska's just been a pretty big disappointment since joining the Big Ten. I think people view them as a lot more akin to maybe what Penn State has been able to do, where they're consistently a 9-win, 10-win team. A bad year is 8 wins, possibly 7, but Nebraska would die to get to 8 wins. And maybe this year they do. And maybe they've got to figure it out with Matt Rule because I like him. Teams that were, quote, put on notice, Auburn and Tennessee. Tennessee hadn't won anything since Peerless Price and oh my gosh, I can't think of his last name now, right after Peyton Manning. But they end up winning it, 98, I want to say, right after Peyton left. And Auburn, they've had blips and they've been good, but they're in a really bad spot right now too. So like you said, Ohio State, the thing with them, they've never really been bad. And they've never had a prolonged drought over multiple years. You look at the year with Fick in 2011. That was rough and a little bit tough. Yeah, that was difficult, but bounced right back to an undefeated season. Like a bad year has been a 2-loss season. So the expectations crazy high, as they should be.
Right.
And you feel good about that. But also having to remember, like, it's just got to finish. And that comes down now. It's leadership, it's big game coaching. I think honestly, having Chip Kelly in and his experience is going to help Ryan a lot. Having a really veteran team, because you look at the teams that have success, veteran squads with Michigan last year, all of those things have kind of circled up and pointed in the right direction for Ohio State. So we'll see if they can buck that trend and be able to get it done, like the next crew that we're going to talk about, who did last year, and maybe they flipped some things in the rivalry with a little help from some advanced scouting metrics that were against the rules of any football that I know about. There's an update with Michigan. We'll get you all the info with that here coming up next. All right, Michigan. Notice of allegations finally issued, Schlegs. Jim Harbaugh given a 4-year show cause. This has nothing to do with the Connor Stallion stuff. This has nothing to do with the stealing of signals. This has to do with the recruiting violations and whether or not you can get a sandwich or whatever during COVID. I guess they were breaking a bunch of rules there, which to me, the rules are in place. You need to follow them. A lot of the recruiting rules now, they're out the door because of NIL and everything else that's going on. But given a 4-year show cause, and if he comes back, a 1-year suspension within the next 5 years, I don't think Jim Harbaugh ever coaches college football again, Schlegs. The guy's 60 years old. 5 years, he's going to be at the Chargers for at least 5 years, 4 or 5. He's not going to be coming back at 67 to go coach. So I don't think any of this matters. They swung hard on this with him, but it's an empty punishment. That's like telling your kids that they don't have to eat broccoli for dinner.
Yeah, it is. And the craziest thing is that this has nothing to do with the sign stealing.
Yeah,
You know, we're not. We haven't even gotten to that yet. And were text messages between Sharon Moore and Connor Stallions that were deleted and all those other things. Like that's just that's for another program.
More layers,
like,
Schlegs.
Right. There's levels to this thing and layers to this thing. But here's the deal. Literally after that came out, he said, I never lie, never steal, never cheat.
No,
right?
I've heard it up on never lie, never steal, cheat, never steal. I raised my family on that. If you stumble, you apologize. Today, I do not apologize.
Right, exactly.
And I'm like, what is going on? Like,
right.
It was insane. I felt like I was watching a movie right there it was a little bit like Christian Bale, American Psycho, just pure sociopath.
Yep.
Like this is proven, and this was cheating. You can argue whether it should have been or not. Like you broke the rules. The rules might be ridiculous. And I talk about this all the time, and I'm sure you do with your kids. Your boy Sammy probably does it. My kids will argue about the rules. And I said, there's 2 arguments here. We can argue whether or not the rule is ridiculous, and that's one argument. The other argument is, did you break the aforementioned rule? So like, yes, that happened. Now I can sit there and say, yeah, some of the recruiting stuff and all the nonsense with eating hamburgers and whether or not you can have guys on that might be a stupid rule, but you can't say never lie, never cheat, never steal. Like that is cheating by the letter of the law. You can say the stupid rule, Schlegs, and we can argue about that, but you can't tell me that you didn't do it.
And that's exactly why he's no longer there and why he left and why a lot of coaches left with him, because there's going to be more that's coming down the pipeline of this. And I just continue to go back. And this is even before the Stein seal, but the record is the record. And before the Connor Stallions hire in that, right, you're 49-26. And then after you're 40-3. And again, everything you're trying to do, he took a pay salary reduction, right? Because he was on thin ice of what they were doing. And he hadn't beat Ohio State during that time. And you're trying to get recruits, right? 0-5. And then all of a sudden you flip the script and here we are. And this what we're talking about right now doesn't even go into that yet, which is why he left. He knew those things were coming down the pipeline. And here's the best part about it. Guess what? Honorary captain week 1. Because you know why? Charge it to winning. They don't care. They got their national championship.
Gosh.
And I mean, isn't that amazing?
Really? Like, honorary captain. That's amazing. He won a national championship. I give it to him. And last year's team was really good. It was a veteran squad. I give him all those things. But that is remarkable. I don't know. I don't understand it.
Hey, you know what? You don't have to understand it because they just wanted the championship and they got it. And here's where I go back to, and I look at this, and when you're talking to your players, right? And this is why even on the show, I don't get so locked up into everything that's transpired in the past, because you can't do anything about the past. You can only control your present, but like, I just keep talking to our guys about being fanatical. If I was coaching, right, just be fanatical. Worry about you being fanatical. What does that mean? It's single-minded focus, obsessively and enthusiastically dedicated to a certain thing, not the other noise, not what you got to do, not even the team up north. That is our goal down the road, but be fanatical about being the best version of yourself day in and day out. Consistency wins, work works, and let's focus on that. So when I talk sometimes and I don't necessarily get in the weeds like everybody else likes to get into and just
but you get in the weeds
out there, no, but it's because I just still have that same mindset because I can't control that. So guess what? This year we got to go beat that team up north. That's what happens.
Yeah. And it's amazing, those Schlegs, how people talk about Jim Harbaugh. They're like 3-0. I'm like, no, he lost 5 games and bailed out on another game before that during COVID. He's won the last 3. That is factually accurate. How he got there on some of them, that's up for debate. We can talk about that at another time. But how it was just like they just erased his like first 5 or 6 years of his time at Michigan, and now they're like you said, Schlegs 40-3, whatever. Like that's just what they are now. Like the other part didn't happen. That was a different coach, not Jim Harbaugh, someone else. This is always entertaining, and it's wild. I'm curious to see what happens with Sharon Moore and everything else and what they choose to do there. I don't think they'll give him a postseason ban, but I don't even know if that's worth it anyway, but we'll see what happens. All right, coming up next, we answer your questions, Tailgate Talk. It's our favorite one, brought to you by Garage Beer. Hammered some of that down at the river this weekend. Love it. Going to be good. And a couple sleepers that maybe people aren't talking about on the defensive side of the ball. Coming up next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and it's Tailgate Talk time. We're answering your questions, favorite segment we do every week, brought to you by our friends at Garage Beer. Perfect beer for you all summer long for all your get-togethers. Cookout, Garage Beer. Family reunion, Garage Beer. Doing yard work, Garage Beer. Cruising around on my boat down at the Ohio River, definitely some Garage Beer. So go buy some Garage Beer and quit talking about it. It's beer-flavored beer, Schlegs, the best kind. All right. You got some questions here. Number one, why can't we land big-time offensive lineman recruits? Now, I think there's a little revisionist history on this. Like Paris Johnson was like the number 1 offensive tackle in the country. Now it's been a couple years since they landed him. DeJuan Jones was right up there too. They've gotten big-time guys. Like Tigger Shabola was big-time offensive line recruit out of Cincinnati. Maybe I think the conversations, they haven't been able to land those big-time national guys. And I don't know necessarily the reason for that, because I like Fry. I think he's a really good coach. I think they have a lot to offer. It's a big-time tradition at Ohio State. And let's not forget too, Donnie Jackson was a big-time recruit as well, and he's played really well. So they've done it. Just recently, they probably need to find a way to get it done a little better.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's about fit, and it's like how we're getting certain guys that are closer to home. But then I think the hardest thing is you're seeing some of the national stuff, right, in the DB room, in the wide receiver room, and it's like in the running back room. They're kind of nationally all over the country, and it's like, what about the offensive line? I think some of that is just fit and timing, right? You can't be at all positions all the time, but it's just fit and timing. And sometimes it's just like, no, I want to stay closer home in Georgia, or I want to stay closer home and do this. Like, everybody is going to have their reasonings, and there's not going to be a dollar amount that you could put to flip the script on a guy. He just has personal reasons that he doesn't want to come. But you also got to look at, we have 2 offensive linemen right now in Seth and Josh Simmons, who were transfer guys that are also starting. So that's also part of the puzzle right now. Not necessarily worried about it, but something that you have to address in the future.
Oh, I don't think there's any theme. Each one of these decisions, like it's an idiosyncratic situation. Like there isn't some overwhelming trend, like we're not getting offensive linemen because of this nationally. And like you said, it's fit, region, sometimes where the guys are at, and everyone's got their own stuff. So we'll see if they can't change it around a little bit. But also too, I mean, I want to get big time recruits, but offensive line, I think you can get sleepers there probably better than any other position. And if you develop those guys, they're going to take 2 or 3 years anyway, and then they'll be really good and be ready to rock. All right. The other big question, like 5 people asked, like, how was the scrimmage? How did it go? I think this is the first time that the offense kind of probably outplayed the defense. Quarterbacks were fired, throwing balls. Great coverage, Schlegs. Like you see some
Oh yeah.
stuff coming out of it. I mean, great coverage. Receivers are making plays. They're throwing it in there. They're not going full tackle, live with the ones, little thud action there, more live with some of the young guys. And two guys who I've really liked at linebacker, and I've seen them go. And the first guy I started seeing some of these flashes in the spring is Arvell Reese out of Glenville.
Yeah.
Like really long, runs well, sharp kid who's been working through his reads and his progressions, and his footwork's getting cleaned up. Like that's one of the things, like especially when you're a real athletic guy, you want to move more than you need to. Like sometimes less is more. And so he's just getting that honed in. And then someone else who, I haven't really got a chance to see a lot because he came in, he was hurt, battling stuff. He's got a sweet mullet. He's from Texas, Schlegs. It's Peyton Pierce.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's going to be a dude. Like,
Yeah.
you can start to see guys make plays like, yeah, I like that. We just need to see a little bit more of it, and you keep building. But I think both of those guys could see field action this year based upon, what you've kind of seen from them over the summer into now.
Yeah, I'll speak on Arvell. Arvell's explosive. Arvell,
Yeah.
Man, dude, that dude can be violent. And again, he's a long arm guy, and that's kind of what you want in the box. Sonny's kind of that way too, being able to strike and engage and get off and make plays. And then you look at Peyton. Peyton came in. He was hurt in high school, had surgery, had actually waited a little bit, had surgery, whatever. And so you didn't see him in spring. And I will say this, a testament to him and his dad. Gino runs a performance course that's all over the state of Texas. Does a phenomenal job as a strength and conditioning coach with high schools. Peyton also a wrestler. That's why Peyton and I are we're so similar. We're like state champion wrestlers, and we play linebacker. And he's here at Ohio State. And I absolutely love him, but he's just very, very instinctual, and he has great vision. And he's actually faster than you think. And you're starting to see him where he's healthy, and that really bodes well. And I'm gonna add one more thing to this. I think that one guy that's being lost in the shuffle, that's a veteran guy that people aren't necessarily talking about, who I think is going to have a phenomenal year, is Emeka. And I was just talking to scouts about Emeka, and it's this, man. Emeka is a consummate pro. He's playing the slot. That's exactly where he needs to be. To me, he's going to be a phenomenal pro, and I think he's going to have a great year because, again, now you look at just right now who you have, Carnell Tate, and I love some of the stuff that's coming out Carnell because he got some dog to him. And then you look at the opposite in Jeremiah, but you have Emeka in that slot that can do a lot of different things, a lot of different mismatches on nickels and on linebackers. I think he's going to have a really big year. And that's the stuff that you're starting to see when this all comes out in these live scrimmages, kind of those mismatches and how the offense is capitalizing. And that's what you want, man. Iron sharpens iron, competitive excellence, man. It's fantastic to watch.
You look at the top receivers, I think it's going to be Tate, Emeka, and Jeremiah, J.J. Smith. And then after that, like Brandon Ennis, I think is that fourth guy. He's played really well. And so Ryan, they're trying to figure out, can you go to a 5 or 6 man rotation? But to do that, you have to have guys like, and Jaden Ballard has stepped up and made plays. He
100%.
physically looks better. Like he's gotten bigger every year. He's made some big plays.
And he's fast.
He can fly. He's the fastest dude out there. Like elite top end speed. But can you do everything else? And that's like Heartline. Like, I'm not just going to put you out there to go run 9 routes. Like you can't just run the top of the route tree. You got to run it all. And you got to be able to do everything. So, he'd be able to continue to develop. Mylan Graham, who didn't come in early, I really like him and what he's been able to do. He's done some good things. And then Bryson Rogers has stepped up and done some good things too. But some of those other guys, it's like you have little nuggets, but you got to build me a whole meal. There's got to be some consistency to it.
And it's a totality of the package. If you look at Jelani Thurman had a really good day too, I believe. And you look at that tight end room, and I love Coach Bailey, right? So he's all about block. Like, how do you beat that team up north? Run the football. How do we do that as a tight end? Block, right? It's the same thing, right? Like, you're not going to get your touches until you block, and we're going to run the football here. That has to be one of the things. But Jelani is a young kid, sophomore kid that's starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together. But that bodes well because he has a guy like Patrick Gerd, who's a veteran, and you got G. Scott, who's a veteran, you got Will Kaczmarek, who's a veteran, all pushing each other. Now he's starting to make plays, and that's what you want to see.
Absolutely. Coming up, we'll close the show. We get some quick hitters for you. I think you'll like these next. Our final segment of the program here. We talked about it last week. It's the first annual Big Play Golf Invitational. It is going to be August 31st at Little Mountain Country Club in Paynesville. come compete against guys like Josh Cribbs, Coach Greg Williams, Hanford Dixon's, Paige Sporonic, and more. Who knows? Maybe Schlegs will be up there. I'm going to try. I don't know if I'll be able to get all the way up there, though. It's a lot. And of course, there's going to be plenty of garage beer, great prizes, food. Get your foursome together and come be part of this great event. Now, Schlegs, I want to throw this out here real quick.
Throw it.
Hide my address here real quick. But I got this little deal from the Buckeyes student athletes. I went and spoke at their like a entrepreneurial leadership class that's just for athletes.
That's cool.
And went and spoke to them. Will Allen was a part of it, our former teammate. He was supposed to be there in person, only it was virtual. I was kind of mad because I wanted to see my guy Willie. But it was fun. They wrote thank you notes, and it was pretty nice to have some personalized touches there. I always say a good handwritten thank you note goes a long way. So I got the chance to read some of those as it just came in yesterday on Saturday. So fantastic with that. Now, former Ohio State quarterback Justin Fields. People said he's looked pretty good in Pittsburgh. Russell Wilson was hurt a little bit. I think people look at him as the presumptive starter. All of a sudden, I think Russell was rushing back from injuries because Fields been playing so well. Can he win the job in Pittsburgh, Schlegs?
I think he can win the job, but it might be one of those ones where it's earned after Russell gets in there, right? So if he tries to come back too soon, something happens, you're going to go with the guy that's going to win, that's going to be able to allow you to win. And he has looked good. And it was also a great moment that, again, I follow guys. Yes, I love Ohio State. And I love Air Force because I played there, but I follow dudes and guys I like to watch. And just watching him and CJ and their interaction, right? Buckeye Brotherhood on the field afterward, encouraging one another. And I do think that at some point this season, Justin Fields is going to be the starting quarterback for Pittsburgh.
I do too. I don't know if it's day one, but I think they'll probably look. You've seen enough Russell and you're like, we know what this is. And we know that he's not the future. Could Justin be the future? You know, he's a first round pick for a reason. Obviously, Chicago, they're battling Cleveland to be the graveyard of quarterbacks. Like how can they ruin careers? So Justin gets out of there. I think people are starting to see his athleticism. They see his arm strength. He's a charismatic guy. He's a leader. People love him. He grinds. He works hard in the weight room. That's tremendous. One other thing too, Cade Stover, 5 catches, 58 yards in 2 preseason games.
Yeah.
I've tried to tell people, I go, Cade Stover will be a starting tight end in the NFL. He might be the number 2 guy this year, but the quarterback is his college quarterback and CJ Stroud. They're going to get him the rock. He is more athletic than people think. And he is a tough ass competitor, man. Yeah. He's a guy that you want on the field.
Yeah, he's a big body guy, man. He's going to make contested catches, and that's what you want. You want grimy dudes at the tight end position.
Grimy. You'll love it, Schlegs. I know that you're a grimy dude.
Yes.
Keenan, grimy dude, trying to get those tight ends there, turn Jelani into a grimy dude. You know, he's a basketball guy. We're trying to work on that a little bit. Hopefully get him on that pathway. But we're cruising along here, Schlegs. Is there anything in this last minute that you want to be able to see in this next week of Buckeye camp?
Well, I'm going to say thank you to everybody for tuning in. This is going to be our 50th episode. Bob and I absolutely love bringing it to you every single week. So thank you. What I want to see this next week is who's going to be that alpha dog that wants to go solidify the right guard position. That's what I want to see. Who's going to be that guy that goes, takes it, sees it, and runs with it, and is that alpha?
In a fight between Davidson Igbenusson and Jermaine Matthews, who wins?
Oh dang, that's a bumpy one. That's for next week's episode.
Does anybody survive, or do they both? No, they just both die.
They just both die. They just boom.
They both fight to the death, and neither one of them stops.
It's one of those ones where it's like you don't want to do. Like I don't ever want to have to fight Fick because Fick and I just know like both of us going to die. So it's going to happen.
That's good. We'll get more into that next week. That's pretty good. Thank you for tuning in. The 50th episode. We really appreciate the support. Buckeyes cruising along. College football will be here in the season before you know it. Stay tuned.